Hey Truth Seekers, it's Nathanael here, continuing our strategy series with the different types of cards. Today we are going to have a special section just dedicated to Hindrance. Before, back during Cross Trainers, we only had 3 Hindrance cards, and Carol and I didn't personally feel like they were necessary in a deck. However, with the new Hindrance cards and new Sinnies, we can see they have a lot of value. So to start with, we are going to talk about this Hindrance card called Roman Scourge. Roman Scourge says, Universal Animo may not be activated against the Sinnie to whom this card is attached, as long as the Sinnie is active. If this card is attached to a Sinnie that is currently battling in a Universal Animo, those Animo must be returned to your opponent's hand. So, one of the strategies that I like to employ is when I run a mono deck, I will run some universal Animo. So like say if I run Faith and Love, I will run like Mercifier, who has a Faith cost and a Love cost, and would also be a 9 to defeat the Sinnie I'm going up against. So that way, in case I get Scoffished or Evil, I have Mercifier to go up against it. But, however, the Roman Scourge allows you to attach it to the Sinnie. So say like you reveal Scoffish, attach Roman Scourge. Well, now I can't activate my Universal Animo or my Faith Animo. So it's pretty strong and very good. So this goes right up there alongside the Scoffish, Scorch, Evil, to help prevent your opponent from activating Animo. So I mean, now all we need is a piece to stop people from activating the Holy Spirit, maybe quenching the Spirit. That might be a thing. So, moving on, we're going to talk about... also, this we're also going to be presenting the different Animo that you can attach these to. This, however, can be attached to any Animo, so we're not going to be specifying which Animo, show you which Animos they should be attached to. Alright, next up, we're going to be talking about Hinderance. This Hardened Heart Hinderance card says this card may only be attached to a Sinnie with a defense less than 10. The Sinnie to which this card is attached has a plus 5 defense. So this card can be attached to Sinnies that cost 9 or less. So the primary target to get the most bang out of your buck is going to be Sinnies that have a defense of 9. So, we have Corrupt Terra and Scorch, which were the original ones that this card could be attached to, and Zapper King and Crasshopper. But then we have joining the fray Anxiator, Grump Roast, and Pandit. Alright, so these are 9 defense Sinnies. You attach this, they become 14 defense Sinnies. It's very strong, very powerful, and taking away 14 points from your opponent is really good. Plus, there isn't really a single one of these I would say that you wouldn't naturally want to run in your deck anyhow. So, moving on from Hardened Heart, we're going to talk about Paul's Thorn. So as Paul's Thorn says, as long as this card is attached to a Sinnie excluding Mega, every virtuous Animo that is activated against that Sinnie has its virtue score reduced by 2 points. So, Megas are the biggest Sinnies that we have. So clearly you want to go ahead and activate this against Sinnies that have a big virtue point total. So the prime candidate for that is going to be Belligerent, Blinders, Pogo, Towcrow, Scorpoon, Grumble, and Flipper. And so you have Belligerent, so that's 11 defense, 11 defense, 11 defense, 12 defense, 12 defense, 13 defense. And if your opponent has 40 or more points, a 17 defense Sinnie. So, Paul's Thorn, equipped to these, it means they're going to have to be activating a lot more Animo against you, because each time they activate Animo, it has its points reduced by 2. So, keep that in mind. Now, we're going to talk about the Hindrance made specifically for Megas. Alright. So this is Blood Money. Blood Money says this card can only be attached to a Mega Sinny. The Sinny to whom this card is attached has +8 defense. When the Sinny is defeated, your opponent gets credit for defeating 2 Sinnies. Since all Megas right now have a defense of 16, it makes their defense a 24, and then they get credit for defeating 2 Sinnies. But 24, that's like more than a third of the points you need to win the game. So taking away 24 points away from your opponent is extremely helpful. So, because this can only be attached to Megas, we're going to go through some Megas here. Walrus Mega, Zapper King Mega, Globster Mega, Plantrap Mega, Cryptera Mega, Nastry Mega, and Scorch Mega. Alright, so just keep in mind that these Sinnies, they all have 16 defense. You're only running up to 3 of them, but that also takes away from your Ultras. So you have to consider which ones you're running, why you're running it, and the only real defining factor against them other than design is their weaknesses. And so you have to consider what Animos are being run, what Animo are the most popular, how long their Bible verse are, and then take that into consideration when you're choosing which Mega to run. All right. And that's it for Blood Money. And the next Hindrance cards that we're going to go over are the Negator Hindrance cards. These Hindrance cards actually negate the ability of the Sinny. So, Millstone says, this card may be attached to a Sinny with an ability. This card's ability nullifies that Sinny's normal ability. And it says, the player facing the Sinny to whom this card is attached may only activate 1 Animo per turn while the Sinny is active. And Blindfold says, this card may only be attached to a Sinny with an ability. As long as this card is attached, the ability of that Sinny may no longer be used. Instead, the Sinny gains +7 defense. So, +7 defense, we're only activating 1 at a time. And we have quite a few of them. So, Kroggle is not like a really good target, but it can become a 14 defense Sinny with Blindfold. But it also only being able to activate 1 Sinny or 1 Animo. It only takes 1 Animo to defeat this guy. And then we got our 8s, such as Screeny, Judgeweed, Hookworm, Denaya, and Murkay. All these abilities are really great. And I can see, I wouldn't want to negate the ability of this one because not having a Sinny play against me is pretty bad. Hookworm, I don't like negating his ability, but I sometimes see it necessary. Same way with these guys. So the only one I would say probably not attach it to is Judgeweed. But you attach it to them, they become a 15 defense Sinny, which is just 1 below a Mega. So keep that in mind. Now we're going to go ahead, and this is our original 9 defense Sinny with an ability. And that was back when Blindfold was. Blindfold can only be attached to Cryptera, and Cryptera ended up being a 16 defense Sinny, which was put on par with the Mega. But now we also have Grump Roast and Hippocritter. So these guys, I'm okay with negating this one's ability, and I'm okay with negating any of these abilities to put these on there. Having another 16 defense Sinny is pretty strong. Because it's almost like adding a whole nother Sinny on top of there. And making them go down to just 1. Sometimes 9 is enough for them not to be able to get over it. So Millstone says, hey, you've activated 1, that's it. So now you're going to sit here and still deal with this guy for another turn. And then we move on to our 10s. We have Wolf, Globster, and Bobbable. Okay? Wolf is a utility Animo that you can shuffle back into your deck to draw a card, but you play this guy and you put a Blindfold or the Millstone on him, and what you're going to do is you're going to still, because it's not a bad thing that you lose his ability. Okay? Because his ability is like the safest to negate, because If he's in play, his ability has no use. Globster makes them discard top card of their deck, and quite frankly, that can be okay, especially if they're not going to be dealing with him for several turns in a row, because these cards can make them deal with them for several turns in a row. This card makes them 17 defense Sinnies, which is better than Omega. So keep that in mind. Same thing, but then Bubble Bubble is a hit or miss, because if your opponent's using a strategy that requires them to play multiple Sinnies, it's not that bad of a thing. It is a bad thing to get rid of his ability, but in most cases, it's not that bad. So negate their abilities, put a millstone on them, have your opponent deal with them for several turns where they're not scoring points. Okay? And then I'm going to wrap up these cards by talking about Scornet, Walrus, and Flipper. These are Sinnies that you can have no problem with. All right? You have no problem with attaching these cards to. But if you attach these cards to them, you're going to end up in a situation where you're getting less value out of them than what you should. Scornet ability only allows it to basically become more powerful while there's more Scornets underneath of it to become the swarm. So, say like you have all three Scornets and you attach them together, and now they're facing down an 18 defense Sinny, and you decide to negate that ability by adding +7. Well, now you're actually subtracting 12 points because its ability is negated. So that's kind of a problem all on its own. And same thing with Walrus. Walrus ends up, if you get all three Walrus, it's a 24 defense Sinny. You're negating that ability, and now they're still just dealing with an 8, plus this was a 15. So Walrus is okay to add the blindfold to, because it becomes a 15 by itself. But compared to having a 24 defense, that's not okay. And then lastly, we have Flipper. Flipper, becoming a 14 defense Sinny is okay, but now you're kind of dealing with the Croggle situation. It's not that great of value, because you much rather it be that 17. And being a 14 compared to 17, you much rather be a 17. And besides that, if you negate their abilities, you just nullify their individual abilities that make them big anyhow and make them worth running. Okay? So, on that note, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. This has been our strategy guide series for hindrance cards. Oh, and I should go ahead and note that when you're building a deck that focuses on hindrances, I would run the number of hindrance cards in my deck at anywhere from 5 to 6 if I'm focusing on hindrances. If I'm not focusing on hindrances, I'm either not going to run hindrances or run them maybe at 2 or 3 at the most. All right? And with that, that gives us the ratios. That shows us what Sinnies are best ran with these. So, in the meantime, Tracy Gears, keep learning virtues and defeating Sinnies.